All right. Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Hi, Priscilla. Thanks for
Hi.
doing this interview.
Yeah. This is Jon Davison. He is a clown teacher, writer, performer, um, dramaturg, director, deviser. Well, yeah, also a historian. Um, from London, England.
That's
And
correct.
yeah, so it's evening for you, John, right now, but I appreciate you meeting with me. We're going to have a little interview for those watching at home. We have a workshop coming up in Vancouver in October. Do you want to tell the dates and
Yeah,
the venue, John?
yeah. So it's a 5-day workshop, Wednesday to Sunday, October the 5th to the 9th. It'll be kind of full on all day, 10:30 to 5:30 every day, um, at the BMO. Oh, help me out here.
Yeah, the arts club, the new arts club studio space, which is technically called the BMO Theater. So we've got a nice big studio. I forget the square footage, but lots of space for 15 of us to run around and scream. Um, just on near Olympic Village. So great area, and it's going to be awesome. I'm so looking forward to it. I've been wanting to get you to come out for a few years. So now that the pandemic is kind of on the heels, we can get back to training and playing again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, now that we've got that stated, we're going to go into just getting to know John a little bit and have a little chat about some clown concepts and some workshop concepts. Yeah, just to let everyone know, who he is and what kinds of ideas we've been talking about. Just as a side note, John also teaches online courses. There's Clown Studies Level 1 and Clown Studies Level 2. So that's how we've kind of gotten to know each other. Is I've been taking those two classes, and they've been a great way to, spend the pandemic and just be inspired about clowning. Okay, so first question, could you tell us about the last workshop that you just finished teaching? I think you were in Belgium last week, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I took a 5-day workshop, same length as what we're going to be doing in Vancouver, in Brussels last week, at a space that I've taught a few times before the pandemic. It was about 2.5 years since I've been there. So it was like going back to something familiar. Brussels is kind of similar to London in that we get people on courses there from all over. It's a big capital city, and it's close to lots of countries. Belgium is small. So you get people from Germany, from the Netherlands, from France, from the UK, from the States,
And
which
it's
is,
so easy to travel around when you live in Europe.
yeah, easier than where I am
So how
nowadays.
many
Yeah.
Americans, I'm just curious, were in the course?
Oh, we just had one American,
Oh,
but
okay.
she laughed a lot, so it's good
Yeah.
to have someone who's happy to laugh. So yeah, so a mix of nationalities and different ways of engaging with clowning and laughter, very different actually. Um, so not just on a personal level, but on a cultural level. So that's all familiar to me. But I actually, for that workshop, I did rejig all of my teaching. I kind of reassessed it all and thought I'm going to do it differently
Oh,
because
interesting.
I've been teaching quite a lot.
Just on the spot, you decided to change your teaching around?
Not quite on the spot, though. I do kind of come up with exercises on the spot as kind of a kind of way of mine that I like to sort of think, okay, let's go this way now, in
Right.
the middle of a class. No, I mean, a few days before going there, so it was the week before, and I was feeling I wasn't quite happy with um, some of the recent teaching I'd been doing, and I'm feeling like things have changed a lot. The world feels very different. I can't quite say, oh, this is how we are now after all that lockdown, pandemic stuff, and a whole load of other things that happened not long ago, which we've kind of forgotten. but
Yeah.
there's a lot of turmoil, perhaps there's a lot of anxiety around. But I think people are approaching this work differently, and I felt like it's not enough just to keep teaching the same way. I never
Right.
felt that. So I kind of look back over what I'd
Wow.
done over the years, and I ended up kind of trying to piece together why I'd identified 4 different ways I've taught in my careers teaching clowning. And
Really?
yeah, so I mean, when I first started teaching, it was very much focused on play and very high energy, high kind of getting people into a almost kind of state of hysteria, or you know, um,
Like bubbling with joy and
very
play?
bubbly, very joyful, very almost trancey sometimes. Yeah,
Right.
that's what I was looking
Where you
for
feel like
myself.
you might be in a clown cult? That's the feeling for a
Oh,
moment?
well, for a cult, you need a cult leader. I didn't ever want
Right.
that, but no,
Okay, carry on.
no. But where you might be in a, just a state of euphoria,
Right.
that kind of thing. That's what I was
Right.
looking for myself then.
Yeah.
So I felt that that was useful again recently too, because to sort of bring us out of this, I'm not sure I want to do anything at all state, if that's what's
It's
happening.
like pandemic slumber that we've been in for 2.5
Yeah,
years.
yeah, like sitting on
Like
the sofa.
peeling the layers off.
Yeah, yeah, taking this Netflix away from in front of you and going like,
Yeah.
oh, what, me? Yeah, hello?
Yeah.
And actually have, wanting to bring something to the table, as not to the
Right.
table, to the
Kind of
stage.
like going outward again and
Yeah.
pulling ourselves out.
Yeah. So I guess that I thought that's useful. And that
Right.
that did make a difference, actually. I noticed that last week. And then, okay, so then my next period of clown teaching was to focus on stuff I had trained in, I guess, which was around the flop, around the stagecraft of clowning, if you like. So, kind of what you're there for. What is this figure of a clown? What they're supposed to do? What do we expect of them, and all that kind of stuff. So that was in there. That's always in there, but I kind of spent more time on it. I didn't kind
When
of.
you say this figure of clown, do you mean like kind of clown archetypes or clown types, like the Joey or
Uh,
the goose or
Almost more basic than that. So what do we expect of a clown? We expect them to amuse us. We expect to laugh probably at them. And
oh,
and what does that mean for a performer when people are expecting to laugh at you,
right,
and to take you for an idiot, and or to find how foolish you are, and how do you enjoy that, and how do you claim that? Um,
right.
so that's all kind of more of a craft, and more
Yeah.
of a that's harder. um, but if you're not bringing a kind of joyous, yeah, let's do this or that to the scene, then it's hard to engage with that other stuff, because already if you're anxious or fearful, or oh, I don't know if I like this stuff, then it's really hard to just put yourself out there to be a kind of object of laughter. And I'm not saying that's everything that clowns are, but there's an element of that in that style of teaching that I used to
Yeah,
do a lot.
definitely. Yeah, I've definitely seen folks step into that sort of traditional role of clowning without feeling maybe grounded isn't the right word, but um fully into it, and it's kind of, yeah, it's a bit more like acting, I suppose.
Yeah, and you can do it that way. It's kind of quite common in England.
Right.
When I moved back to England from Spain years ago, I found, oh, people are taking this is kind of an ironic clowning,
Yeah,
kind of.
I found that also in Europe too, like not just
Oh,
England, other places in Europe, like this sort of like, I guess it wouldn't really be called a comedy act, but it would be like a clown act, but it was more leaning on the acting part. Where
yeah.
what I'm used to in like at least Vancouver is like more on the sort of like real person impulse,
Hmm,
um, kind of
hmm,
um, emotion part.
hmm,
Um,
hmm.
but anyhow,
Yeah,
anyhow.
yeah. So there's that. So there's, yeah. if we've been in the world of clowning and clown workshops and performance, we're probably familiar with all these bits. They're around. Nothing special about what I do. Then the third period for me was when I got very interested in what do clowns do. What you put in a show. What is the content? How do you write for clowns? Or yourself or others. Because I found in my own training as a student, I'd been trained a lot in being on a stage or being in front of an audience, but not how to actually construct and create something. And then that took ages and ages to work out how to do that. So I got interested in
when you say ages and ages, can you just give us like a ballpark window?
Well, when I said, okay, enough with the clown workshops, I don't want to do any more at a certain age, I was at. I would make a show. So me and someone that was on that last course I did said, yeah, let's make a show. And it took us just over 2 years. So before we were happy that, yeah, that's a clown show. I mean, it was an hour-long theatre show, theatre show. So it was quite ambitious. Yeah, it wasn't a 5-minute number or So, but it took us a long time to go, well, hang on, but how do we go from there to there in this bit, and how do we put that bit together with that, and why would anyone want to watch clowns for an hour anyway? All that stuff, and none of that had come up in any of our clown training. Theatre, yes, I mean, we've both done theatre previous to clowning. So, but how do you create that stuff? So I got very interested later on in doing that and finding ways through that and ways to teach it. So that was in there last week, of course.
Cool.
And then finally, what I've been interested in for the last few years, just pre-pandemic, was a little bit like the work with the second one I said, which is around the flop and how you respond to what people expect from you as a performer, as a clown. And that's response to laughter, response to absence of laughter, response to how you feel when you're on stage as a clown, response. So observational, kind of honest, coming to awareness of what's going on in this dynamic relationship between clowns and spectators, where we expect, or at least that's the way I work with it, we expect this amusing, funny figure to amuse us, and we expect to go, oh yeah, what an idiot, or whatever it is. So how do you actually navigate that? So I'd worked a lot in the last few years on that, but again, that's if you come directly to that without having the sense of I can just play and do whatever I want, then it's kind of hard and it dries up a little bit. So in a point where
that's a really great point, because there's a lot of things firing off in my mind, but I want to let you finish your thought though.
So in now I was observing, at least in the workshops I was teaching, that there's some kind of reticence, or a little bit more anxiety, or it's a different kind of anxiety. So I felt like, okay, just to work with that stuff I'd just been doing, it's not enough. And all that stuff with response to laughter, response to silence, that's the book that I've just finished writing. So it's already out of date. Sorry, it hasn't come out yet, but it won't. No, it won't be out of date, but it's not enough,
What's the title?
That's the Clowning Workbook. So that'll be out later in 2022 at some point.
Cool.
So that's what we did. We did sort of a day on each of those things, and then there's a final bit, which is actually constructing, actually making performances that could work out there in the real world. Amazing. Not just in a workshop. Because a workshop is a very sort of rarefied atmosphere where things suddenly become very funny, but it's all in context of a workshop, and you can't reproduce it outside, or things look really terrible, but actually they're not that bad. You
kind of have your little buddy group, your little gang, and you all become friends, and then you start seeing patterns, and then you laugh like, oh, like Cecilia did that thing earlier, and now Jon is doing it now, or whatever.
of course, and then you go and put it on a stage and no one likes it, and you think, well, why not?
There's no inside jokes anymore.
No inside jokes, no. So how do you create that context for yourself where it's going to work, how you think it's going to work, and have some kind of security with that?
Cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was last week. So yeah, it's fun to just revise stuff, you know. It's like, I mean, if ever I have a bad habit that if I see two people agreeing about something, I kind of assume it can't be true. So, you know, I've always had this. So, but
like to get in there and like kind of uncover the rocks and
flip
them over and ask questions.
Yeah. What if it's
That's
wrong?
Great.
You know.
What if it's wrong? What if what we've been teaching or learning, or you know, what if that gut feeling is not just you know, me being sensitive or crazy? Maybe that gut feeling is something that I should listen to, and maybe don't like doing something that way, which leads to another question that I will get to. But
go.
So yeah, okay, so thank you for explaining that new revised workshop. And I just want to say that you know, I really like, obviously we didn't plan this. This was just we did plan this, but just last week you decided to create these kind of components. And I just want to say I really you know, kind of admire that as a teacher, to keep things really fresh and current. And those 4 or 5 components sound awesome. I feel like I could, you know, spend a month in each 4 or 5 sections.
I mean, they also play off each other. It's like in order to you know, come out in front of an audience, talking about just in the workshop, and see how you feel when people don't laugh, for example. You've got to bring something there so that for them to respond to, you know.
For sure.
So, but what is that thing you bring? Is it something that the teachers told you, some really simple action that everyone does as an exercise? Okay, that's fine. Is it something that just comes out of wherever it comes from, your body, your imagination? That's fine, but that also has its limitations in that if we're not working with generating improvisational impulses, you know, that's a whole area of work, you know, in itself. It's interesting, but it's not the core of clowning for me. Or do those things come from you know, sitting aside for a few minutes and going, okay, I'm going to do this, and this. Yeah, that's going to be good, you know. And then maybe it isn't, maybe it is. But so there's 3 different ways to bring something to an audience. Like, you get told, someone else wrote it, you make it up, improvisation, or you wrote it just before you went on stage, or a long time before. And that's really different experiences of then being confronted by spectators laughing or not laughing, or going or crying, or whatever they respond with. So yeah, so those bits, they need each other, you know. You can't just go flop, or you can't just
no, and you can repeat the cycle. I mean, in terms of training, you can do the 5 bits and then, or the 5 sections, and then figure out the structure, and then go back to play, and then go back to flop, and then go back to devising, and rinse and repeat. So with that kind of information, I would like to just ask my next question. You talked briefly about sort of, you know, I think you said the expectations of the response of the audience, and I would just like to know, like, sorry, let me bench that word. If you can give a kind of general scan, and, you know, just pick a couple favorites of, like, you know, sort of a clown landscape. You know, I know you're also a historian, so you know clowning from when it was first recorded as starting. But yeah, maybe there's a couple styles that are your favorites, or maybe there's a couple styles that you are just can't believe they're still hanging around, or there's there's a couple tropes that you think are really interesting, or just to kind of give a little overview. And we don't need to I know it's a big question, but we'll
Okay.
we'll see. Organically, whatever unfolds is fine.
Okay. I mean, I'm really fascinated. I've always been fascinated by, I guess I could call it folk clowning. Um, so in England and in Europe, that often means, well, in England, it depends which part. In England, that means things which had kind of fallen into decay, but are still kind of present, like Mama's Plays and stuff like that, which I know you also have in
What's
Canada.
place?
Mama's Plays, Mama's. Don't you have that in
Mama.
Canada? The Mama's Plays? Oh, that's the other side of Canada. The Mama's Play is a folk form, involves dance and music as well, which
Oh,
is kind of a performance, usually of a battle of fights between different characters, depending on where it is. And
yeah.
usually the hero gets killed, and then they give him another chance. The doctor revives them, and then they have another fight. Yeah, there may be several deaths and resurrections, which are more or less comic, and then the right one wins in the end.
It's like vaguely familiar, but no, I've
Okay. Anyway,
yeah.
that's a remnant of folk customs, that's still here and
Okay.
there. But elsewhere in Europe, in Spain, for example, there are some amazing living traditions which involve clownish kinds of characters that fascinate me. So the ones which really fascinate me are the ones that get chased out of town, get exiled out of the village, or get tomatoes thrown at them. And what this all means and what it's symbol, is up for interpretation. But I like the sort of these kind of almost archetypal story enactments of yeah, this of the village against the clown, or the
Is it
clown.
because the clown's behaving badly, or is it because the village isn't casting them as an outcast?
Well, it's obviously a symbolic kind of exiling, or a symbolic punishment, or a symbolic sacrifice, or whatever. Stories get attached to them. There's one in one town north of Spain, which is, they say, oh, it's because someone was back in whatever century was imprisoned for something, but they said, oh, we'll let you free if you can, when we release you, you can get over the bridge, over the river, without anyone catching you. It's a kid's game, it's a children's playground game. If you can get over there, you're safe. If we manage to hit you with carrots or whatever, then you lose and you go back to prison. It's this kind of thing, and I don't know why I like this kind of stuff. So I like these kind of very intense kind of clowns chasing each other kind of stuff.
That does sound intense, but that also makes me think of and it's probably not related at all, but in the, I guess, the 80s, there was that sort of dangerous clown theme going on, right?
Yeah, the 80s, so all that alternative comedy, as we call it in here, sort of punk inspired comedy,
right, with the chainsaws and the fire.
Archetypes.
Chaos,
the French company, the metal clowns, so the clowns that had corrugated iron costumes and sort of hit each other with big hammers and stuff like that. Yeah, that's a bit too far out for me, but yeah.
that's like the metal end, and then there's the folk end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's keep it folksy. Yeah, no, but these are just tastes, But I like the intense stuff.
That's cool.
Intensely grotesque clowning as well. I do like that kind of stuff.
So would you say you like Buffon clowning?
I never really got to grips with Buffon when I was studying.
Okay.
I never really got it.
But you did study it, right?
I did study it, if you call doing a month with Philippe Gaulier studying Buffon. Yes, that's what it is, right?
Doing a month with Philippe Gaulier is, a chunk of time. It's a
chunk of time, yeah. I didn't get it. I clowned my way through that. particular course, and he kept saying, "Oh, yeah, very funny but wrong,"
You're
and
very,
very funny but wrong, and I didn't know why till the last day, and he kind of gave a little speech about what Buffon is. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, it's that." I think, right, yeah.
what were you
I,
missing?
I know, I just didn't know what it was supposed to be, and I was so embedded in clowning. It was just my obsession, still is.
Yeah.
That I just didn't notice the people telling me, no, no, not that, do this. So I
Right.
just was blindly going through, and I thought, oh, right, it's that. And I thought, yeah, can't do that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I guess I'm
Anyway,
biased. I'm biased, partial to Buffon, but you know,
yeah.
it is an acquired taste.
But I love seeing when people who really connect with it. It's fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the
Um,
other thing I like is the kind of very elegant, light kind of clowning that
oh yeah.
like something clowns who are very, yeah, just very joyful, but in a very easy way, like, huh, nothing's,
Right.
it's fine,
There's like a grace to it.
graceful. There was a clown called Pierre Nock, from the Nock family in Switzerland.
Pierre Nog? Like
Pio,
Pio.
Pio, Nock, Nock. Check him out on YouTube. This is the kind of the age of circus clowns, back in
Yeah.
mid-century, last century. But he was very elegant, very yeah, can't describe it, but that quality of lightness, I do like that too.
Where it's like, I kind of like to use this term for clowning sometimes if it warrants it, but visual poetry.
Yeah, just a sense when I watched him just on a video, I never saw him live. Yeah, just a feeling of yeah, things are okay. That's good. Rather than it's just different to the oh my god, there's 2,000 people chasing someone in a strange costume down the street.
Yeah.
Wow, what's going on? Yeah, which is a very different feeling,
Right.
but also very exciting.
Do you think that I sort of like asked about tropes, but I mean that's such a it's like, well, which clown tropes? So I'm going to pinpoint one that that kind of I'm maybe annoyed with. But
Go on, yeah.
in terms of the stupid, maybe not innocent, but the like the dopey clown that's like, oh, I don't really know, and like, yeah, maybe a bit more innocent, vulnerable. Like vulnerable is like a big thing for clown teachers, like to show vulnerability all the time, and the flopping and the failing and the stupidity. Is that it? Like in terms of, I mean, I don't want to make it too political, but like it feels like that kind of like low status clown has been going on, like it's the most prevalent, consistent in all the years of clown traditions. Is that like, are we tired of it yet? I don't know. I am. But I don't
You're
know.
tired of it. Yeah, I can see why. Yeah, I mean, I think
like in terms of today's landscape, like, do you see that changing? Like, are we as a people like craving clowns to be less stupid or less, I don't know.
I mean, I think historically what happened in Europe and North America particularly was that it got split off. There's a clown got infantilized for various reasons. It's for kids. And then it was on, yeah, and then it was on TV. Just for kids. It's all to do with having a concept of what entertainment were for different age groups, which we didn't used to have. It was like anybody.
Right.
And so it became very kind of nice. And then, of course, you got that big boom in scary clowns because it had to go somewhere. I think that's my theory.
Subversion.
Yeah. So then you get all the, the fright clowns and the horror clowns and the, its and all that. And that's interesting that is, for me at least, is associated with another age group, which is teenagers. So it's like you know, it clowns for different age groups. That's a pity, really, for me. I like, again,
Yeah.
going back to the ones I said, I like, you know, when clowns can be, you know, oh, really, everything is okay, and then go, but you know, I could actually do something really bad and naughty, you know. And
See,
so
this
there's
is, yeah,
why they don't have to be separate. And I think
this
the
is so
clown bouffon
interesting.
thing is also, you know, separated them out, and it's a
Yeah,
shame. It's a shame.
that's thank you, because I do love Buffon, but it's not that I love the category of it. I just love flipping the expectations and not being so predictable as a clown. And so,
Mm.
I would do something that I would do a clown act, and then I don't know, just maybe not even wearing a nose, just wearing a whatever outfit, and then I would be a little sneaky, or there would be some dark material in it, and then
Mm.
someone would be like, "Oh, that was a good Buffon turn." I'm like, how is that Buffon? Is just clown with a little bit of like maybe less innocence, or
Mm.
conniving, or the clown was a mischievous. So I personally would love to, yeah, like take that hard boundary out of like, oh, if the clown is sneaky and
Yeah,
devious, then it's Buffon, or it's dark clown. And if it's cute and innocent and stupid, then it's real clown.
yeah. Or if it, you know, if you want to, if you constantly go back to themes or subject matter, which people say, oh, that's very adult oriented, you know, because it's sexualized or because it's about poo, or you know, it's like, but why not? You know, it doesn't mean you're not clown. You know, that there is areas that clowns aren't allowed to go into. You know, or that's Buffon territory. You know, I think it's just a pity. It's limiting. At the time when those categories were being, you know, it's all down to one man, really, Jack Lecoq. Okay, so let's, you know, it was just exploratory. Like, what happens when people are, you know, we're supposed to laugh at the person like a clown. You know, there's a clown. What happens when you're supposed to be the object of laughter? What happens when? What about? How do we work with people who make fun of everything and everybody? So that's Buffons. Yeah, and that's great. You know, it's exploratory, but to fix them down into universal truths, you know, when they are of their time and place, you know, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Buffon's 1970s and clowns in the 60s in that
I,
way, you
yeah.
know, we have moved on quite a long way. And also, we don't all live in Paris.
And it's
So,
yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of
anyway,
Lecoq and Goyer and Via Negativa, like that whole world of clowning is, I mean, at least where I am in the West Coast in Vancouver,
hmm,
Canadian West Coast, I know a lot of us are tired of it. Like, where it's just, and especially now in 2022, I think, actually this, I was going to ask this later on, but I think this is a nice bridge over to just asking you quickly, because you've been working on a project with another clown and student, a decolonizing clown project. So
hmm.
I kind of want to just know like a little bit about that, if you can.
Sure. So, Amrita Dhaliwal, who teaches, uh,
Amrita Dhaliwal, right?
yeah, who teaches at the Idiot Workshop in Los Angeles, California,
Right.
um, is doing this project with me. We're doing this together. And Amrita did that clown studies course, which you did with me.
Right.
She took it 2 or 3 times, I think. Um, and out of those conversations, excuse me, we said, let's take this a bit further. And so we're looking at, I mean, in practical terms, we're applying for some funding to enable the project to happen in reality, rather than just the two of us talking about it and writing stuff. But it's basically about looking at clown teaching and ways in which we as clown teachers have created a place which is predominantly white, um, dominated by male teachers, um, and which is exclusionary. And how have we done that? So that's the starting point. And it started when the course that was running 2 years ago now. Yeah. So, well, April 2020, when practically most people doing that course at the time, myself included, we were mostly what we were concerned with was how do we look at our own world, which is clowning and clown teaching, learning and performing, from an anti-racist perspective. So what are we doing? Why is our world like it is? What have we done to make it like that? Anyway, so that's the starting point. And then, so what we're looking at is ways in which we reproduce those situations and we exclude, and what we can do to change that. And it's very different, you know, for the two of us, being who we are, how we look at that. For me, as a white man teaching clowning, it's very different. You know, what am I looking at? So you mentioned vulnerability earlier, and that's an area that is, a concept that's been important in a lot of teaching and learning and clowning for many years. So, for example, for me, it's interesting to look at, without necessarily dumping it completely, but to look at, well, you know, what kind of equality and vulnerability do we have in a classroom? And we look at, depending on who we are in that classroom, we are more or less vulnerable when we come into that room, depending on who else is there. And we're more or less vulnerable when we go back out into the real world. Myself, I'm pretty invulnerable when I go back into the real world because of my identity as a white man, a cis white man. But that isn't the same for everybody. So to use vulnerability or enforced vulnerability, let's say, that you must be vulnerable, you must feel like shit, you must fail, you must flop, as the only route through to the real clowning is maybe problematic. So we're looking at what happens when we put that aside, what is in its place, how do we bring in students' experiences and knowledge of clowning. So rather than, there's nothing wrong with neutral mask and all that, and kind of trying to get back to a kind of neutral, let's start from the beginning. But what happens when we don't try to make people neutralize people, let's put it that way, when we don't try to neutralize who you are and then build you up again, because, you know, we're probably going to build people up again and they're all going to look the same. That's what happens, right? You know, you could spot who's learned with which teacher. It's easy, and that's inevitable. But instead of aiming for this kind of tabula rasa, this kind of clean slate, which, you know, politically, philosophically, just makes no sense to me, and could actually do a lot of harm. What about what people already know? I mean, people are adults when they come to this. You've had a lifetime of clowning in social situations, in your family, in your community, in your school, in your hobbies, in your church, whatever.
We're not babies and toddlers when we go to a clown class.
No.
And we're just first experiencing comedy and the art of the flop. Like, you know, I remember thinking after years of different clown trainings, like, well, when am I gonna like work with the comedy that I already have, like my Azorian grandmother, or, you know, when my dad drinks too much? Like, I found that stuff funny as a kid. Like, it was scary, but it was also funny. And it just felt like it was always reserved in the back recesses of my imagination brain. And I was like, oh, well, maybe one day I'll get to work with that material. But right now I'm in this workshop and we're learning how to be vulnerable. And don't even get me started, you know, as a survivor. It's like the vulnerability thing, I have come up against it, and I see the value in it, but it is just not possible for everyone. It's not possible, and it's sometimes not good or safe or productive for some folks in different stages of their life, or different identities, to just bear vulnerability, you know, in a workshop. So yeah,
That's,
you know, vulnerability is another conversation, but
yeah, but so that's some of it. So yeah, so I mean, you mentioned before we started this interview, you know, if I can bring this into the conversation, you've been spending a lot of time making stupid jokes with your mum this week. You know, that's clowning. You know, and with the people that which, So what can you learn from that, or what can you even teach? Can you teach me how to do jokes with your mum? You know, can I learn what is that? You know, because we all have something of this in some way, or maybe not all.
Just sort of zero in and dissect the true authentic moments that we already have. Or
I celebrate that, you know, so it becomes a celebratory form rather than oh, I've got to have a bad time before I can be a real clown.
It's so funny when we lay it out like that. Okay.
Which is the old conservatoire style of learning, you know, acting or ballet or.
So it's a European thing, right?
It was the thing, you know. It's like, you know, get rapped on the knuckles by the big stick, you know, and the.
But it's also like, I'm like, getting rapped on the knuckles, so it's an authoritarian thing, but it's also like this. Is it this Catholic like self-flagellation thing? Like, why are we so addicted to like power, abuse, misery, being the underdog? So the whole, you know, via negativa Goye stuff, like I know there's a few friends and folks and myself somewhat that is kind of just like snooze and eye roll with the Goye's approach. By the time I trained with him, I was already too old to be impressionable by him.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't. I think it's not.
I'm not throwing it out.
No, but we can change direction when we need to, and we can be aware that if it's not working very well. I mean, my first clown teacher and current mentor always says that, you know, that approach was, and she was around, you know, in the 70s doing stuff with those, you know, going over to France and seeing what this new training was all about, you know, coming back to England.
Again?
Frankie Anderson, her name.
Frankie Anderson, right?
And she will say that, you know, that stuff was for its time and for its place, and it was for actors, tough, rigid, armored actors, European, French actors that were sort of asking to be like, come on, break that armor down, you know. And, you know, maybe it worked for them at the time, you know.
It's
but we're not them, you know. You know, so yeah. Anyway, there you go. So that's the decolonizing thing a bit.
Thank you. Yeah, that's super interesting, and I can't wait to hear more about it. And
the other thing, though, that you mentioned about the via negativa and its impact. There is a thing there for me, which is a big question right now, is that how do we play with violence? Because one thing is to say, okay, so the method, the teaching method, the pedagogy, is it reproducing that violence? Not because it wants to, because, you know, Gaulier will, you know, is very playful with his power, you know, and it's a beautiful thing, actually, I would say, though it doesn't work for everyone, but it can be. But that playing with, and you know, I've worked with that. And a couple of workshops ago in Germany, we had a big debate about this, because I was thinking, okay, I want to bring back in exercises where we're playing with violence, but I'm not sure if this is going to work. And anyway, so I brought back in an exercise I dropped for many years as being not relevant or appropriate anymore. And it created a lot of like, oh my God, what are you doing? No, we can't do this. And we then had a big debate about it and kind of agreed that, okay, this is probably not the way to do it, you know, stick in the hands of the male clown teacher. But how do we play with this then? Because otherwise, if we're just going to put all that nasty stuff aside, we're back to infantilizing clowns.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
How do we play with it? So that's a big
Yeah.
question mark for me at the moment, in practical
Well,
terms.
first I want to say I just am so like amused and pleased at how like you're just so curious and brave. Like, let's play, let's I want to do this violent act, I want to look into this, how do we do it, you know, it's like turning over those rocks, like what's under here, what creepy crawlies live under here, like, oh yeah, work. I mean, I think I appreciate it because I myself take things too seriously. I take myself too seriously. I take concepts too seriously, and things are so precious. And it's like, you know, the clown performer, and you know, this might come up when we talk about like structure and devising as a clown performer. But when you feel overly precious about ideas and you don't want to touch them, but yeah, I just appreciate that curiosity, like, okay, well, let's figure it out. It's not working still, okay, fine. But I also think it's a really great point that, like, just in terms of working with the darkness, but yeah, as humans, you know, we can't just sidestep the shadow work or the, you know, like, we need to look at ourselves and what makes, and look at violence. And, you know, for some of us, maybe that's abuse or trauma, and maybe that's too heady, and maybe we want to save that for therapy, and keep our clown separate. But throwing all these things in the air and seeing what you want to work with.
Yeah, I mean, because if you look at, you know, historically and transculturally, that's possible. Look at how much clowning has been performers or playing with that. That's one of our largest taboos, which is violence towards each other. You know, how often that occurs in clowning is quite striking. So yes, okay, it also occurs in drama, in tragedy, and lots of other things too, politics, and you know, war is its literal enactment. But yeah, I think it's something not to be ignored.
I mean,
potentially clowns have something useful there, maybe, because it seems like
gun violence alone is like an extremely hot topic, messy topic, at least for North America. But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways that, you know, there's clown activism and there's social engagement. I think that clowns working with violence is a interesting.
Yeah, and then there's slapstick.
And then there's slapstick.
You know,
we used to do it and love it all the time back in the, not me specifically because I wasn't born yet, but I kind of crave going back to that time. Like, if I could time travel, because I just want to like be in a slapstick troupe and just like flop around and learn stage fighting and learn, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I would love to do that.
Yeah,
cool. So much to talk about. So I think we've been chatting quite a while, so I'm going to skip a couple questions, but I do really want to ask you about, oh, sorry, was that my notification? I don't know, my computer.
Yeah, time's up.
I thought I turned my notifications off, but yeah, so I know myself, I've struggled with this over the years, and I haven't made a show in a while, so I probably still struggle with this, but going from like the studio and flop and play and emoting with your friends in a clown workshop, which is cute and cozy, going from that sort of little bubble world to making a show, there seems to be like a disconnect, at least in like the course in the training that I've done, because we kind of get shooted out the end of the tunnel of the workshop and we're like, okay, but how do we make a show now? Like, yeah, I feel like a lot of us are standing around going like, wait, we didn't get taught how to, you know, what's the next step? So if you could talk about the bridge between sort of the play of the clown performer and then the show.
So I think it's different. It's going to be different for each performer, and it's going to be different for each teacher.
Right.
So I think, yeah, so when I started really diving into how do we teach, how do I teach this part of the creative process, what interested me were structural things like, rule of three, or what does it mean to be in the wrong place, or in problem solving, those kind of things. That's what interested me. Probably because, but looking back, some of the teachers I had, or I'd seen, or I was aware of, I'm guessing their assumption was different, that the work you're going to create comes out of, for example, this character whose costume I just gave you, which is a valid route. It's not mine. When I got given costumes by clown teachers, I didn't have a clue what to do with them. It wasn't my way, but I could see my classmates, some of them going, wow, yeah, I just discovered what clowning is all about. And they had, kind of, for them. Whether then, if they just put that costumed person on a stage, it worked or not with real audience, probably not. Well, you need something more. You need something else. What are you here for? What's your relationship with the audience, etc., etc. So that's the issue. So my answer was to ask myself, what do I do as a clown? What are the things? And that's also personal choice. Do you want your clowns to be I don't know, doing absurd, nonsensical things like pretending to be a bathtub, or I don't know, or do you want them to be telling a dramatic story of like a kind of soap opera style drama, or do you want them to be reenacting real life events of politics and war and climate change, or what do you want them to do? So that's good to ask that question. What do you see your favorite clowns doing?
Right.
So
it's helpful. Yeah, it's helpful for folks to engage in clowns that have come before, and watch videos and sort of to get more inspiration and input to sort of, oh, I could do that, or I can incorporate dance and clown, or I could make a street theater, or kind of clown activism. So many different routes to take.
I mean, one of my favorite ways through there is with something with a skill you have. If not everyone believes they have this or has this.
I don't have skills. I can't do anything.
Should we could check that out, but
I am going to learn how to do stilts. That's on my list.
Okay, but something which is a little bit like when as for spectators, like oh, you can do that. So which is, I find it interesting because it's kind of the opposite of what we assume clowns are supposed to be, incompetent and they can't do stuff. So how you work with something skilled and clowning is really interesting. So that's a way in, and it's a way to make it personal without it becoming a self-analysis.
Self what? Oh,
analysis. If it becomes your psychoanalysis on the stage, then it's a whole different thing that I'm not qualified to help you with, because I'm not a psychoanalyst or a therapist.
See, I think that's interesting you brought that up, because I've definitely been in some clown class or sort of clown jams, or groups where it feels quite personal and quite tender and quite like we're moving through different emotions and impulses, but there maybe isn't really a nugget, or this is going to be crude, but there isn't really a point to us being on stage. We're kind of just on stage because we just want to be seen, and we want to see the audience. And so we kind of just stand there and make eye contact for a little while and kind of giggle and maybe do like a little movement with our body, and we're very present and we're very responsive. And that's, to be honest, like I have, when I was in Europe, like there was clowns that I was meeting that were saying like, oh, like that style sounds really refreshing and I would like to go learn that. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I would really like to learn some more technical, structural, like European style clowning. But so yeah, maybe it's a Northwest thing. Maybe it's like coming from Pachenko sort of work, but that
could be.
It can be very beautiful, the emotional sort of present eye contact kind of clown. But I think myself and some of my friends, we ask the question like, okay, but like I can't, like what am I actually doing, and what am I gonna do like for a clown churn? Like
exactly, what am I doing? Yeah, like for example, you mentioned eye contact. I had a student last week who, as a person, doesn't make eye contact with people.
Oh wow.
But for me, that's not an issue. You know, we found the ways for her. And she's very playful, very original, very silly, very clownish. You know, it's just a question of what does this clown do?
Yeah.
That serves us spectators. It's like I like to think. Recently, I've used that word a lot. Maybe I'll get bored of it. But you know, like how do you serve your audience or spectators or onlookers or whoever you happen to be clowning for? How do you serve them? Because if it's self-serving, then you know I don't need to be here watching you. So what is the service that you bring? You know, what is it? Is it to relieve us of tension and the burden of pain and anxiety because we're laughing so much we can't think about everything? Or is it, well, what is it?
I think that's a really good question. And you know, maybe it comes down to like, you know, philosophy of, you know, personal philosophy. But I remember Gina Bastoni, one of my clown teachers that has passed on, but she would say like, you got to know why you're on stage. Like, if you don't know why you're on stage, then you shouldn't be on stage. Don't use that privilege and don't take it for granted and don't throw it away. Cause like you get on stage, you've got a powerful position. Like basically she's saying like, what are you serving us? Like, what are you serving us? And if you're just there to be like, I don't know, like this feels good for me. And I have like, you know, ego issues and I wasn't loved enough as a kid. And I didn't like acting school. So now I'm here and now I'm cute, right? And it's like,
but that's a good act. You've just done a good act there, you know, because you've played it. But if you're actually doing that, then it's not gonna carry. Yeah.
Well, I actually don't know what time we started, so I haven't been keeping track of time, but
we're probably getting near the end, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, there's still questions that I didn't ask, but I feel like we don't I don't know how much we're gonna squish together to present.
Who's still listening, you know?
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean there's some really juicy topics. So I think that with the workshop that's coming up in October, there's going to be some great opportunities, like, you know, in terms of the question, the last question that we were just talking about, making the bridge. Yeah, I think
I'm interested. Yeah, that's what I'm interested in, because that was the issue I left clown school with. How the hell do you make a show? I still don't know.
I felt like I was not ripped off, but kind of like, am I the only one, like, you know, asking this question? Like, is this a joke? Am I getting pranked?
Yeah, maybe you did. Yeah. But so it's how do you do that? And how do you learn to create your own performance contexts? You know, the workshop is it's its own context. Yeah. And what works there won't necessarily work out the door, you know. So how do you work on that in the studio? You know, how do you? So yeah, Yeah, I use some structures for larger structures, which come from some of the things I was talking about. So
Yeah.
some kinds of old circus clowning, and some of that kind of carnivalesque, the fiestas of Europe kind of stuff, events. So which are very similar because they often, one of the classic endings for an old circus clown routine was for a chase out of the ring. And many non-clowns, or more, let's call them more contemporary clowns, would turn up their nose up at that. So that's not a proper ending. You haven't resolved the conflict. Well, I think you have, because the resolution of conflict is often an exile, or
But it's
get
all,
out here. Of course, it's a resolution. And then the clowns come back and they take a bow and they all
yeah.
smile and it's just a joke.
It's also so beautiful. Like just the other day, I was clowning in the park for an event in Vancouver, and just chasing a little kid is like the biggest thrill. They freaking love it. So just the like simplicity of the chase is awesome.
Chases
cool.
and peekaboo. That's all we need.
Yeah, chases and peekaboo and potty humor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Farts.
Yeah. 3 things. Yeah, potty. Yeah, okay. 3
Farts
things.
are hilarious. Cool. So that's going to be a 5-day workshop, and we're going to learn it all in 5 days.
Yeah, hopefully. And then, and some of how these pieces fit together, hopefully will become a little bit clearer for all of us, myself included.
And so you won't be beating a drum and yelling at us and telling us we're stupid?
No, but I might do it. No, I won't. No, I don't have a drum. I might ask you if you feel stupid.
Okay.
And if you do feel stupid, then I might ask you to do particular things.
Okay.
Not do particular things.
But you're not going to make us.
So the question
you don't take the authoritarian position that some teachers do.
I don't think so. But my teaching does come from
abusive authoritarian, I should say.
I hope not. But my learning and my teaching comes from what I learned originally and what I developed. It does come from that whole big kind of mess of how do we teach clowning,
right?
So it does have that in it, and it's not. I haven't, I'm not aware of all of it. So so it might also happen that we're actually planning in September at the Clown Congress that we're planning for in Bristol in the UK. One thing I want to do with a colleague, we want to run a contested workshop where I'm going to kind of start teaching and she's going to say, wait a minute. Wait a minute. So
it can become, so you think you can clown, like, so you think you can dance.
Yeah. So wait a minute, that doesn't work for me.
And then we can make a show out of it, and it can be like America's Next Top Clown.
Yeah, and then we can franchise it. So
we can franchise it. Yeah,
different performers in it all around the world. Doesn't matter who's in it.
Amazing. We could have like different guest judges.
Sure.
Ooh. Okay.
So anyway, so I think it's important. But it's important to not always to be inviting everyone in the workshop to say, no, I don't, cause but to be able to, well, wait a minute, does this really work? Or to go, wow, yes, can we go further down this way? Yes, let's go that way. To keep that exploratory kind of mood.
Yeah. Well, my sort of tongue-in-cheek intention for asking that question, if you're going to be beating a drum and telling us we're stupid, is to kind of give like a gentle cautionary, not cautionary. The folks watching this, they might not know you like I know you. So everyone, Jon does not do via negativa. So
but does he? I'm not sure. No, wait a minute. Right. I don't. What I don't do.
From what I know of you, I know I've never taken your class, so we'll see. You might surprise.
You see. I don't. What I've never been able to do, and if I'd been able to, maybe I would have, is to play boss clown in the classroom.
Boss
So
clown.
yeah,
That's
that's
the
what.
term.
Yeah, so I won't be. And people do it really well. Huh? Some people,
Boss
or
clown.
or badly. I've seen both. So where the teacher is kind of coaching the student by saying, "Oh, so I hear you. You have a dance. You prepared a dance, right?" And they go, "Oh, yes, you have. You've prepared a dance." And you're kind of pressurized into this thing. For me, it feels like pressurized.
Yeah.
I don't deal with it
Yeah.
well from either end, but I've
I
seen people deal with
pretended
it
it
really
wasn't
well.
pressure. I pretended it wasn't pressure at the time, but I was feeling
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah. So but some people respond well to it, and some people teach well with that.
Boss
But
clown.
I
Yeah.
I don't either, so I don't do it. Basically, I teach what I think or feel might be useful for me, and what I might be able to help other people with. Because if I try to do something I'm not very good at, it wouldn't be very good.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason I think clown teachers teach differently, if they teach differently, is because they've found each person is kind of exploring something themselves.
Yeah.
And there's no point saying, and this may come up, so I'll say now, but I took this class with so-and-so and they said this and you say that. Yeah, because they are they and I am I. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So that it came up last week actually, and someone, I said, yeah, but that person you're talking about is dead.
Well,
So
it fascinates
they're
me
not even here. So
the clown is such an abstract world. Like we should not be thinking, we should not be using linear thinking to be like, oh, well, are you sure? And this is different from that. And
yeah, so for
yes,
me,
embrace it.
if I take a class or if I teach one, I hope that the atmosphere, the ambience is that, okay, we're doing this for these days, for this time, see how that works for you. Maybe someone will learn exactly what I had in mind people should be learning from this exercise, maybe. Or maybe they just learn they don't like me.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe I'll learn I don't like them. I don't know. So, but no.
I mean, we're gonna learn something at the end.
You're gonna learn something, but it's good to just stay. Okay, so where's this person wanting to take me?
Yeah.
There might be something really interesting here. I don't know what it is, but
yeah, if you're going to sign up for a 5-day clown class, you're stepping into it. So we don't want to scare people off, but it's going to be fun.
And I won't be telling people, no, you've got it wrong there.
Yeah.
But if you want it to be like what you already know, it probably won't be.
It probably won't be what you already know.
Hopefully.
Well, that's what makes it exciting. So on that note, I'm stoked. And that's what we say in BC. I'm stoked.
Oh, okay. I've heard that.
Yeah. Oh, maybe you say it in London too.
I think some people do. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I thought we
Thanks,
were special.
Priscilla.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
Hey.
Yeah, we that was a great chat, and